And hello, Jets fans, and welcome to another episode of Rich Sports Talk. You spoke, and I listened. I asked you guys if you wanted to do this recap right after the game on Monday night. You guys want to stay up late? I have no problem with that. So we're doing this live stream. I know a lot of you guys were very kind to put in the chat what we were going to talk about, and I really appreciate that as always. But the Jets defeat the Falcons 24-16. A lot to take from this game. A couple of key position players for this Jet team who many might have thought would be key contributors, I think showed their true colors tonight. How the Jets organization values them, certain players that stuck out in this preseason, difficult players for this team to cut, and of course, is a certain fan favorite now on his last legs. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Rich Sports Talk. Thank you so much for joining us as always. We will be live after every Jets game this entire season. So if you want great analysis and Jets breakdown, make sure you bash that subscribe button, hit that like button. Of course, give your thoughts in the live chat. If anyone is braving the rain in East Rutherford tonight, if anyone was out sitting in the rain or is just in the concourse somehow watching this in MetLife State, we'd love to hear from you guys. But we are here live, and I appreciate you guys as always joining us. So weird night for the Jets. Started off falling behind 10-0 and then finished up the game with 21 unanswered points. Actually, 24 unanswered points. So the Jets, a bit of up and down. Now, the beginning of this game, I think, is a little bit thrown out of the way because the Falcons clearly starting their entire squad, basically their normal squad pretty much for their first team offense and defense. Well, the Jets, I believe I saw the stat from Connor Hughes, 17 of the potential 22 starters were not out there, although Robert Saleh at the podium did say the Jets stars will play in the preseason game against the Giants, the finale. So what that means to me is they'll probably play a series or two, probably the first quarter, to keep them healthy. So Jets, Robert Saleh, 4-0-1 in the preseason. Hopefully that carries over to the regular season. But we now have a bit of a quarterback controversy, not the one we expected, and certain players that might be falling out of favor with this New York Jets fan base. But a couple things that stood out. So I'm going to start with the quarterback position because, again, I know it is the biggest talking point. And then we pretty much all know, again, that Joe Flacco is the backup. Joe Flacco is going to start. So it wasn't a surprise. But a lot of Jet fans, I think, wanted to see what this battle for the third quarterback is going to be. Now, in all honesty, what I believe the Jets are going to do is likely carry two quarterbacks and put one on the practice squad. Now, if you were to ask Jet fans 2 weeks ago who that would be, it would be Mike White. Mike effing White. Let Mike White cook. But after two preseason games, I think you see why this staff was a little bit wary of Mike White, why they were so adamant to bring Joe Flacco back, why Flacco is the backup quarterback. And after tonight, you're starting to wonder, will Mike White be a member of the New York Jets? White, of course, 12 of 17 tonight, 90 yards, no touchdowns, no pick. Looked okay at times, looked a little bit overwhelmed, struggled a bit. But the real story for the Jets has been their fourth quarterback, Chris Streveler. Now, he's had an incredible journey to the NFL, and he has really stood out. Stood out in the Eagles game where he didn't get any reps at practice, looked really well. Did have a tough interception in the rain tonight, but overall, I thought he outplayed Mike White. 8 of 11 for 119 yards and a touchdown. I mean, the Jets offense was struggling to move this football. Streveler comes in there, they go right down the field, also adding 33 yards on the ground. And I think Streveler's going to get a nod at being this team's developmental backup quarterback than Mike White. Now, both of them are somewhat similar in age. Both are a bit older backups. I mean, you have Streveler being 27 years old, a little bit more undersized, 6'1", 216, where Mike White is about 6'5". But the thing that I really liked about Streveler, which I don't think Mike White added, was the athleticism. You saw the ability to make plays with the legs. You saw the ability to push the ball down the field. It looks like he has a little bit more stronger of an arm. Mike White looks more accurate, but Streveler looks like he's got more athleticism, a little bit better arm. And if you were to ask me today, he's going to be the third quarterback. Now, The question is with Mike White, do they keep him because they like how he's been in the building because he knows the system so well? But we look at Streveler, who's the fourth quarterback and probably at most maybe gets 2 or 3 reps a day at practice where he's on this depth chart even now with the Zach Wilson injury. The fact he's picked up the system so fast and the fact that he has come out and looked so good. And look, I mean, let's be honest. This is basically for the third string quarterback position, so I'm not going to lose my mind. But to me, he really looked good. I thought he looked great. Nick Chaplin, no need for Mike Evan White. I don't need to see him in the preseason and regular season. Let's go Streveler. Streveler, comeback kid. And look, you saw a bit more energy when he was on the field. And one of the things that really stood out tonight, which I don't think is super alarming, but it is a bit of a pause for concern, is the secondary, and more specifically, one player. Now, I've liked Bryce Hall, but I remember when I proposed trading him at the beginning of training camp, people were like, "Oh, you're nuts, Nolan. That's a crazy idea." But people last year really loved Bryce Hall, and I get it. He played really well last year, but it's clear that the Jets did not value him as a starting corner in the NFL, not only going out and getting DJ Reed, but also getting Sauce Gardner. And I think it's clear tonight that Sauce Gardner is going to be one of your starters. Sauce, you can tell, looked really good, but Bryce Hall, now the question is not even the third cornerback. Is he the fourth corner on this team? Because one of the things you've seen with a lot of the younger corners on this Jet team is they have better ball skills. Like, they look like guys that can create turnovers. But Hall tonight had a rough game. Gave up the big play to Kyle Pitts, the touchdown early. Like, Bryce Hall, I don't know what it is, but he did not look good tonight. And I understand DJ Reed wasn't playing. I understand Sauce Gardner they weren't throwing at. But you really were looking at Bryce Hall as being a valuable piece. And part of the thing I was hoping for with Hall was he'd have a really good camp in the hopes that maybe the Jets could trade him for a missing piece. Maybe the Jets could get an additional draft pick for him that maybe they could use him to help improve this roster. But the problem is, and you saw it tonight, one of the things I've always been critical of him is he doesn't seem to be – he has good cover skills, but he never seemed the type of corner that can bat the ball away and create a play. But tonight, the coverage was bad, and they were picking on Hall. He had wide open, bad coverage. It was not good. It was not good. And this is someone too, and Christopher Decker slot is MC2, and that's why I'm saying Bryce Hall's the fourth corner on this team right now. And look, I think Brandon Echols has played really well. I think you've seen a lot of these corners, and you saw some breakdowns tonight. But overall, like, some of the secondary, I'm a bit concerned. I saw Will Parks may not play, but then Ashton Davis struggled in coverage. This is going to be a really fascinating cut down point because there's some players that you can tell they really like. They really like Will Parks as a safety. They really like, I think, Jason Pennick as a safety back there. I think Pennick's going to make this roster because he offers the corner and safety versatility. But the Jets, I don't think, want to carry more than 4 safeties. And what do they do with Ashton Davis? How do they figure it out with Joyner? I mean, there's so many different options that they could do. And look, it was not a good night. And for Bryce Hall, this was, to me, a good opportunity for this camp to now really establish it. Like, this is the big thing about training camp for me is you're not just trying to impress your own team. He says, I believe that you use this to go out there and to basically, sorry guys, I was just checking in on the dress. Yeah. Basically Sal saying it will be a dress rehearsal. So I was just checking Twitter on that really quick, just to make sure I'm getting all the latest from the Sal press conference so I don't miss anything. But it is amazing to see where Bryce Hall is. And it is kind of funny because I do think sometimes we as a fan base tend to value certain players more than the front office. I think the best example was Denzel Mims, who made a nice play in the game tonight. Now, could he have maybe made more of an effort on the interception? Who knows? But it is funny because there's certain players on the line here that are looking like they're getting bumped. So for another good example is Tevin Wesco. Couple of bad penalties tonight. He's supposed to be this blocking tight end. And then you see Lawrence Cager, who's a converted wide receiver, making plays over the middle of the field. And you wonder, maybe they can use him as a hybrid slot receiver, hybrid tight end, and maybe keep him on this practice squad and continue to develop him and maybe utilize him as a hybrid tight end this season. Because he does, I know they would like a blocking tight end, but just the versatility that he brings to the table could be something to keep an eye on. Michael Clemons, I thought, played really well. And Clemons, really, they've been putting, a thing I've noticed too with Clemons is they're putting him along the inside. I thought Jonathan Marshall had his best game of the preseason. And really, the defensive line, it's going to be fascinating. I mean, one of the people we haven't talked a lot about is Bradley Anae, who had a really good game, especially rushing the passer tonight. And I'm curious to see what happens with him because Jacob Martin has been a coach favorite. Bryce Huff is a coach favorite. You have Jonathan Marshall on the interior, Solomon Thomas. I don't think Curry at this point is going to make this roster, but Bradley Anae is a funny character because I think he's shown he can rush the passer. But the question is, do the Jets find a way to keep him on this roster? And don't forget, does he get an inside edge because he's played with Salah before? That's going to be fascinating. I really think this roster cutdown is going to be interesting. I do wonder if the Jets try to trade one of their pass rushers to get a piece or a late draft pick. I'm really curious to see what they do here. Nick Chaplin, I like Coleman for third running back. Have to keep him. Another interesting, sticking with the running back too, Nick, Zonovan Knight. I mean, they used him in the kick return. Had a nice kick return tonight. I really liked what I've seen him as a running back. He will be another. This is the hard part with this roster gymnastics, is because it's not only figuring who you're going to put on your practice squad, but I just have a feeling if you put Knight on the practice squad, that another team's going to come in and swoop him in. So the Jets consider carrying a fourth running back. That could be a possibility. Overall, I really like what Zonovan Knight brings to the table. I know P. Ryan had the touchdown run tonight. I still have a hard time thinking he's going to make this team. I just don't see it. I just don't see how he's going to fit. There's so many running backs now on this team, and there's only so many spots. I'm curious to see where they implement, because Coleman's making team, so you know that there's three set. If the Jets carry a fourth running back, Knight just seems to me of all of them to have the most upside. So I'm really curious what they do with the running back position. Atlanta's terrible, though. We had majority of our starters out, and they played most of their stars in the beginning and still look really bad. Yeah, that's the thing with Atlanta. Like, if you're a Falcon fan, you got to be terrified because basically, let's be honest, this was the Jets' JV team. I mean, Mike White's the third quarterback, and after tonight, you wonder if he's even going to be the Jets' third quarterback. And the biggest concern to me tonight was Bryce Hall, because Bryce Hall is a starter. And I know that they've put out the depth chart that Bryce Hall is going to be the number 2 corner, one of the top 2 corners. I don't see that. I'm really curious to see what happens with Bryce Hall, because I was hoping if he had a great camp, maybe the Jets could trade him and get some value. But after that showing tonight, I don't think he's going to have a lot of trade value. Look, if they don't trade him, they're not going to cut him. But it does show where the Jets viewed him. And it was kind of funny because last year, and I'll admit I fell into this trap a little bit. I thought that he could maybe be a number 2 corner for this team. But the Jets made it clear when they went out and got DJ Reed, when they got Sauce Gardner, that that they need to upgrade the corner position. And they have. Twitter at Rich Sports Talk was tweeting earlier tonight, guys. If you want to check out my thoughts of what I was saying earlier. So there is a lot going on tonight. And if you want to give me a follow there, it's at Rich Sports Talk. That's at Rich Sports Talk. And that was following the game, tweeting my reactions to the game tonight, my thoughts, and trust me, I have a lot of them. For example, Chris Stevler's winning the third quarterback for the Jets. That's just opposite. And I do think Lawrence Cager is making a roster push, but I am really kind of curious now, and maybe you guys could answer this, where Bryce Hall falls on this depth chart. Because one of the funny things that you've been hearing about Jed Camp is, even though Hall is the front runner right now and is a starter technically on paper, you've been hearing a lot about the other corners and what they've been doing and their potential. And you do wonder if the Jets, how they're going to stack the corner room, how many corners they're going to carry on game day. I'm really curious how this roster is going to pan out. I think there's so many different options that this team could really go with. But overall tonight, I thought it was a nice win for this Jet team. Offensive line, they need to cut down the penalties. But I'm just watching the Bryce Hall get absolutely roasted by Kyle Pitts. And look, Kyle Pitts is an unbelievable tight end, but it's concerning. And the thing that you were concerned about too tonight is most of the defense, Sauce was out there. And let's not forget, Sauce had the interception of the joint practices. These teams played each other joint practices. So they've been together for days and they've gotten familiar with each other. I did find it interesting that, did you notice how Mariota stayed away? Mariota's a veteran now. Do you notice how he stayed away from Sauce? Like, he didn't even attack Sauce Gardner. He just continued to go after Bryce Hall. Just continued to attack Bryce Hall. And that, for me, was very interesting. And that's one of the things with the joint practices I like, because you can see these guys learn some of the tendencies and basically the Falcons offense. And look, the Falcons first team offense, they're trying to make a statement. Marcus Mariota is trying to make a statement that he's a starting quarterback. I mean, you have Kyle Pitts. I mean, they're trying to basically build momentum and build going into this regular season, where you look at the Jets tonight. Like, I thought the pass protection was a bit better. I know they basically didn't play a single starting offensive lineman tonight. I thought Max Mitchell looked better in his second game at tackle. But to me, it was very interesting where you saw the Jets defensive line especially get after it against this backup unit and the first team. Like, it's clear the Jets have better depth on the town. And look, it's not saying much because it's Atlanta. I think Atlanta is going to be a bottom 5 team this year. I think them and Seattle are basically going to be racing for a top pick in the draft, if I'm honest. But still, this is a good check for the Jets. I thought the Jets played a good game tonight. I thought that you saw a lot of good things. The things that I'm concerned about, though, you saw a couple of guys that Wesco I don't think is going to make this roster. There's a couple guys on the bubble, and the receiver position is going to get interesting because Blacks look really good. I do think that what the Jets are going to do is likely keep him on the practice squad. It's still funny because you get that shot of energy with Denzel Mims. It feels like you get one play like that, and then he just kind of disappears. So it's pretty amazing that kind of happens with that. I mean, Tariq Black, of course, hurt in this game. Hopefully he's okay. That's the other big thing. No big injuries coming out of this Jet game, which is good. And you look like Denzel Mims, Lawrence Cager, and Calvin Jackson. It's funny because Denzel Mims is supposed to be this second-round talent, this huge, big body playmaking receiver, and even against backups who probably are not going to make an NFL roster, it is funny that Streveler, who hasn't even been on this team, who was he looking to? It was Cager. It was Cager, and it was more Cager. He was a playmaker. He made the big touchdown play, but it's clear that he built a rapport with Cager and trusted Cager. And the one interception was for Denzel Mims. And look, I think it was a tough play. Mims, I don't think was going to come down for that. But, I mean, 3 catches, 43 yards tonight, not bad for Mims. I mean, he had the one big catch, but you were, I think, selfishly hoping for more, because a part of you was looking at the situation going, not only for Mims, but can he also go out there and be a trade piece? Lots of comments coming in, guys. Leandro Ball, I hope you got the Twitter handle. Again, if you want to follow my Twitter, the handle's @RichSportsTalk. That is @RichSportsTalk. And you can also follow @RichSportsTalk on Instagram as well. ESPN compared Wilson to Swan. I couldn't believe that. Yeah, let's not start comparing guys to Hall of Famers. Orvalowski loves Garrett Wilson. He compared him to Julio. I don't think that's a good comparison. I don't think it was Dan, but someone had a comparison where they compared Elijah Moore to Steve Smith, and I thought that was pretty good because smaller receiver, but explosive receiver, just had a knack of finding the open space. Wilson, I don't think is the biggest burner in the world, but he's just such a good route tactician. And you saw it tonight with the strong hands, with the comeback, coming back, making the strong catch with his feet off the ground. I think Julio's tough because Julio's a freaking nature. Julio's like 6'5", like 6'3", could jump out of the building. I mean, Julio is like one of those rare specimen of wide receivers where you're like, oh my God, like that guy is just a freak of nature. And look, I think not to say that Wilson isn't a great athlete. He is. He's got freakish skills, but overall, uh, I thought I thought that was a bit much of a comparison. I just think he's a really good route runner. I'm trying to think of a good example um right now. No, Irvin Charles, I saw 2 catches, 9 yards. Okay. I mean, I was more impressed, to be honest with you, with Cager. I mean, Cager, 3 catches, 65, including the 34-yarder touchdown. Torrey Holt, a little bit. Like, to me, he reminds me, this is a Hall of Famer. I know I'm probably going to kill for that. He kind of reminds me just how smooth a route running is. It kind of reminds me of like Marvin Harrison, that kind. Because Marvin Harrison also wasn't a huge receiver either. Like, I think that is a better comparison than Julio Jones. You think Falcons? You think the Falcons get a high seed in the playoff? No, they're playing the JV Jets. Like the Falcons are going to be one of the bottom 4 or 5 teams in the NFL, in my opinion. Torrey Holt, not a bad comparison though. Flacco called Moore Smith, I believe. Rich, thanks, Snoopy. I knew it was. I wasn't sure if it was a teammate. I knew, or because ESPN was there because they had the Monday night game at the practices, so I wasn't sure if it was like an ESPN analyst that dropped that. I knew I heard that somewhere, but I thought that was a really good comparison. Dan also compared Garrett to Devontae Adams to. Yeah, that seems a bit high, and I don't want to put too. I want to put too much expectations on because it's very hard for receivers in the first year to really make a huge impact. They'll make an impact, but you really see the explosion for most receivers year 2 to in year 3 once they get comfortable and get adjusted. I mean, it's rare to see the Justin Jeffersons or the Odell Beckhams that just come in and dominate, or the Jamar Chases. And I think it's kind of appropriate because you kind of see one of them, like it feels every 4 or 5 years that one receiver just comes in as a rookie, doesn't have any problems, and just lights it up. So that'd be great if it's Garrett Wilson, but I just want Garrett Wilson to be a productive receiver. And I'm curious to see how the Jets utilize him too when we get to game day, because I imagine Corey Davis he's going to be the outside receiver. If I had to put money on it, even though I feel Elijah Moore is going to be this team's number 1 receiver by the end of camp, I feel like Moore is going to operate mostly out of the slot and Garrett Wilson on the outside. Now, they'll be interchangeable. I don't think they'll be there exclusively, but I am curious to see who gets more of the slot reps. It's clear that they've been putting Wilson on the outside. And you saw tonight, like one of the reasons why they like Wilson out there. He can go outside the numbers to make the catches. You also see him cutting across the middle of the field. He offers that versatility, and that's one of the reasons the Jets really liked him. Is he offers you 3 levels: the short, intermediate, and the long pass plays. I mean, we haven't seen the long pass plays really in the preseason, but you can see why the Jets really were high on him. AJ Terrell, Casey Hare, Grady, Jared, Kyle Pitts, and even unproven 6-foot Drake London. They got weapons. No, I don't question their weapons, Ray. I question their offensive line. I question their defense, and I question their quarterback. I mean, they have Marcus Mariota, and I like Marcus, but realistically, how many games are they going to have the best quarterback on the field? Like, seriously, like, I don't think I think their roster's okay, but if it's only okay roster, you need a great quarterback, and they don't have a great quarterback. He is basically there to be the holdover. And I'm curious to see too if this team's going to be 2-6. Do they just give Desmond Ridder a shot? I mean, Ritter's played decent in this preseason. I think he has solidified himself. Like, okay, he's an option later this season, but is he better? Is Marcus Mariota a better quarterback than Jameis Winston? I think it's kind of a toss. Then they play the Rams. He's not better than Stafford. They play the Seahawks. Okay, better than the Seahawks. Browns, Jacoby Brissett, kind of a push. But then you got Brady, no. Trey Lance, maybe. Bengals, Joe Burrow, no. I'd probably put Baker slightly ahead of him with the Panthers. Herbert, no. Baker again. Fields is more talented, but I hate Chicago. I don't know. The Falcons, like I'm looking at their schedule now. It's not a hard schedule. They could be a funny team this year. Like they could be a team that is 6 or 7 wins, but makes it interesting. Or they could be a team that's 2 or 3 wins. Like I could see it going either way. Dan pretty much sees a superstar in Garrett. He's praised him way more than Elijah. Snoopy, like I get that too. And don't forget too, Garrett Wilson for the average football fan is more well known for a lot of reasons. So, I mean, Elijah Moore, don't forget, was also 2nd-round pick. And while that doesn't, for big football fans, that's not a big deal. But there's a lot of casual football fans that are tuning in. And most football fans know most casual football fans are pretty familiar with the first round of the draft. Once you get past that, it kind of becomes a blur for them. And look, Elijah Moore was a bit banged up last year. I think he's got a lot of great potential. But look, Garrett Wilson was the highest drafted receiver since Keyshawn. He's a top 10 pick. I mean, he's coming off of Ohio State, a wildly popular team, probably one of the top 3 most popular teams in the entire country. He's well known to the most casual football fan. I feel like even if you know anything about college football or you know anything about the NFL, like you've heard of Garrett Wilson, you've seen Garrett Wilson, you saw him in the Michigan game. So I think that's another reason why he's out there. Name Ray, you're killing me. 10 good NFC teams. Bucks, Packers. If I had to pick the playoffs if I had to pick the playoffs in the NFC, if I had to pick today, I would say the division winners are Tampa, but I think it's closer because I don't think they're going to be as great with that offensive line. The Saints are a weird team. Everyone loves the Saints. I don't like. I just think like we're undervaluing. I know it's the same coaching staff, but Sean Payton's such a great offensive mind. There's got to be a drop off there, in my opinion. If you had to ask me today, if my guess would be Packers, division winners are Packers, Rams, and Bucks. NFC East, Jesus, I guess the Eagles, but I don't love that pick. And then I'd say wild card teams. I think the Vikings could sneak into the wild card. I mean, I know people don't love Kirk Cousins, but they're at bare minimum going to win 7 to 8 games there. And probably now with the new coach, they might get a boost and get up to 10. And then I think you're going to see 2 teams out of the NFC West. I think you're going to see Arizona. I think you're going to see San Francisco. I don't think you're going to get a wild card from the NFC. The only outlier could be the NFC South. Now, could Baker and that team stay healthy and surprise people, get 8 or 9 wins and sneak in as a wild card? Sure. Could the Saints do that? Sure. I mean, it's not great. I get that, but Snoopy, I don't know about Detroit. I think we fall in love with the Hard Knocks teams every year. Look, I like the energy of Detroit this year. I think they've added some really nice playmakers. I just think you're limited with Goff. Like Goff without, we've seen Goff, and I like Goff. I think Goff's a decent quarterback, but we've seen Goff without Sean McVay, and we got the track record. I mean, without McVay, he's won 3 total games. He's 3 17-1 as a starter. And even last year, I mean, he only started 14 games, but 19 touchdowns, 8 picks. Decent. I think Detroit's offensive line's better. I think it'll be closer because I really think the Bears are going to be a bad team. I think the Lions have done a better job improving their defense. Like for me, Detroit still feels about a year away, and I almost get the feeling like Detroit when we get to the Thanksgiving game. This is what I think we'll see on the Thanksgiving game. We'll see Aiden Hutchinson. We'll see these toys and these playmakers. We're like, Detroit's got some pieces, but I just have this feeling like when we walk away from that Thanksgiving game, we're going to say, Detroit's got something there, but it kind of feels like Goff's holding them back. I like Dan more than Saleh in Detroit. He has good stuff. I don't know about that, Snoopy. Like Dan Campbell to me, of course, comes off really well. Like you can tell the energy he brings. Like he is definitely a more motivational coach. And I think for coaches, we tend to like that. We tend to like the more motivational coaches, the ones that live with bravado. I mean, that's one of the reasons like Rex was so popular forever. Saleh to me seems like he's a guy that cares more about the X's and O's and more about trying to keep a team on the even keel. And look, high energy coaches, it works, but it's a lot more volatile. And let me explain. When you have a high energy coach, I feel like short term, it's better because they bring a bit of energy, they bring enthusiasm. It's usually a young team. They can feed off of that. But it's kind of like what we saw with Rex. When things start to go a little sideways or things aren't as great as you expect, and it's still bravado, a lot of these guys are looking like, okay, but we need to out-scheme a team or outsmart a team or be more prepared. And like to me, bravado is a good adrenaline rush, but the coaches that tend to stay longer really aren't all bravado. So I get with Dan Campbell. Like, I love the energy. Like, look, no question, he is unbelievable for TV. I think he's a good coach, but I almost feel like he's overrated. Everyone was killing Saleh last year, and the Jets were decimated with injuries. They didn't have Zach Wilson for 4 or 5 games. And he still ended up winning 4 games in what I thought was a really depleted roster and a roster that still didn't have a lot of pieces. Like Detroit, like won 3 games last year in a division that wasn't nearly as good as the AFC East, in a conference that's not nearly as good as the AFC. And they had a quarterback that, yeah, I have questions about, but is a Super Bowl quarterback and got a team to the Super Bowl. I mean, and they won 3 games. So I do think it's a little bit overrated. So Hutchinson's a stud, Sewell's a stud, Amon Ra's a stud, TJ Hawk's a stud, Jameson should be good. No, I keep saying, like, I think there's going to be a lot of toys, and my feeling, Snoopy, is by the end of the season, this is what we're going to say about Detroit. Like, come back after Thanksgiving. This is what I think the national audience and the national media is. Wow, Detroit's got some fun pieces. They have something good going here. But it feels like Goff is holding them back. And there will be discussions because they'll have that extra first-round pick. Will they be a team in the quarterback market? So that to me is something I would keep it. Yeah, Ebiketti's someone I love coming out of the draft, Ray. I really wanted the Jets to get him. It was interesting, though, because I loved his motor. He was a freak athlete. You did wonder, though, if he'd fit better as a 3-4 rush backer. Now, they do the 4-3 there in Detroit. I was hoping the Jets would get him. He's one of those players I was really dying to get. But look, they got Jermaine Johnson. I think Jermaine Johnson has the potential to be a very good player. I thought he played very well tonight. Ray, Falcons look, we've seen weird things happen in football with that. They can outdo the Vikings. I don't know about that. I like the Vikings have a great – Vikings might have one of the best 1-2 punches at wide receiver. I mean, Kirk Cousins is – at least a middle-of-the-road quarterback. I think their defense is going to be better, and they have one of the better running backs in football. And I think running games, they're good. Do you think the Giants will be picking 5 to 10? Uh, Here's the thing, Snoopy. I don't know if you're a Giant fan or not, but it's kind of weird because I almost feel like half the fan base is hoping they're picking in the top 5 for a new quarterback. Uh, if I'm honest, I feel the Giants, I just feel like they have so many questions. And the one thing that happened to them is what happened to the Jets last year, which was it was a critical developmental year, but they were incredibly thin at depth. And we've already seen them lose a starting guard. They've already lost 2 of their draft picks for the season on IR. It just feels like the Giants. Now, they have a stretch in the middle of the season, like 6 games. Like, if they win 4 of the 6, they could win 5 of the 6. They could be a very intriguing team. And like we said, the NFC's garbage. I just don't trust Daniel Jones. And I mean, I had this live stream earlier, and you can check it out. My reaction from their preseason game last night. But my reaction to them is their offense is in a weird place because I think they have some nice pieces, but they're pieces that really need a quarterback to elevate them. And I don't think they have that quarterback. And they have a quarterback that I think can play a little bit in the NFL, but needs really a unit to elevate him. And unfortunately for the Giants, I think the playmakers are looking for Daniel Jones to elevate them and vice versa. And unfortunately, I just don't think it's going to happen because I don't think the Giants have a true number 1 receiver. I don't think they have a dynamic enough tight end. I still have questions about Saquon's health, if he can play. And more importantly, the offensive line already gotten some nicks already. And look, I think you're going to see some growing pains with Evan Neal. I don't love their interior. I feel like they're another draft away from really turning around. If I had to guess, I don't think they'll be bad enough to be a top 5 team, but I would not be surprised if the Giants were picking in the top 10. Who would guard Drake and Kyle Pitts in the red zone? I mean, is Ray a Falcons fan? We're talking a lot of Falcons instead of the Jets. It is. I mean, that we're talking a whole lot of talking a whole lot basically right now with the Falcons. But overall, though, I thought it was a really good game for the Jets backups. I mean, the Garrett Wilson, I think, made another nice catch. You see why the Jets were so high on him, why they wanted to draft him in the draft this year. And Strevler, of course, we've known he's bounced around the XFL, CFL. Interesting comment, though, because we were talking about Bryce Hall earlier, is what Salas said. The issue tonight in coverage versus the Falcons is a simple fix. It's just vision. Sal says he's having a good camp, so you don't just want this bad performance to define what he has accomplished. That's the thing, too, with Hall. I think guys just sometimes have a bad game. I think it's a little bit of comic. I think he had a bad game, obviously. But I do think what the Jets, it's clear that they didn't view him like they didn't want him to be one of their starting corners. If he had to be the first reserve off the bench for a couple games, I think they're fine. But I think that's one of the reasons you saw them go heavily after DJ Roy and Sauce Gardner in the draft. It's because they like Bryce, but they're hoping to get a better option. Oh, I love Pickens. I don't know why Pickens fell in the draft. Like, to be honest with you, I know Wendell Robinson's having a really good camp for the Giants. I really think the Giants missed out with George Pickens. I think Pickens could have added something to that room because Robinson reminds me a lot of what they already had in Kadarius Toney, a little bit of a smaller receiver, an explosive receiver. Pickens is a physical receiver. Like, Pickens to me, like Rondale and Toney, I think could be really good number 2s, maybe low-end number 1 receivers. Pickens, if he puts the package together, could be a legitimate number 1 receiver. I always really like Pickens. I'm I'm really shocked he did not go in the first round. Like when we look back at the 2022 draft, I mean, it's clear it was the draft receiver, not only because AJ Brown was a part of that draft and got traded uh, during the draft, but I'm just actually going to pull up where he was drafted again because I know it was second round. I'm trying to think. I'm curious to see if he was still on the board for the Giants. Um, yeah, Jets drafted Bryce Hall 36, Pittry, Ebiketie, Gordon. Yeah, Mechie went ahead of him too. I mean, man, like that's just so unfortunate for Houston. Tyquan Thornton, jeez, like, do you think New England's regretting that pick? Tyquan Thornton already out for half the season. Uh, yeah, like I'm surprised he made it to 52. I know there was concern about the injuries, but I mean, he was 6'3", 200 pounds. I mean, a lot of these receivers they're both smaller, and if you're the Giants, you better hope Wendell Robinson really pays off. But this was my concern. He's a 5'11" receiver. He's a lot like Kadarius Toney, and the reason it was kind of weird. Day 2 of the Giants draft was really weird for me, and I was critical of it. I said they had an A+ day 1. I thought they actually had a good day 3. Day 2 was really weird. I went on the tangent earlier. You can check out that episode on the channel. Why they should have drafted Malik Willis and how they're already regretting not drafting Malik Willis in the draft in the third round, not first, third round, because they had 2 third-round picks. But I remember at the time when they picked Robinson, my thought process was, and we have to go back to April, that they were moving off Kadarius Toney because you had heard those rumblings that they were potentially looking to move Toney. And we all know Toney had some of the off the field issues his rookie year. And my thought process was, okay, they picked Robinson because they have a deal lined up or they have someone they're going to deal Toney to for a draft pick. And they're going to take Robinson to replace Toney in that role. Except that didn't happen. So that to me was really surprising because I also understand too, they're paying Galladay a ton of money. Galladay's an outside receiver. I get it. I understand it. And look, I understand the value of a slot receiver in this system. We've seen it with Cole Beasley in Buffalo. I mean, you want a valuable slot receiver. Look, I get it. But man, I think we're going to look back at Pickens, and I think there's going to be some teams that are going to just shake their heads like New England. I just feel like, and look, I mean, the Falcons, you look, their offense gained 4 yards against the Jets backup defense. I think the Jets backup showed the difference. And, the other big news too was during the interview, Joe Flacco kind of let slip that that Zach Wilson's already moving around a lot. So the curious thing I'm really interested to see the start of the season, Brandon Eccles had a really good camp. Coach just realized Eccles. Is Eccles going to jump Bryce Hall? Bryce Hall. They get mixed. Bryce Hall on the depth chart. I think that's something to really watch. I wanted Drake London or Garrett Wilson. Wilson to me fits the system. I didn't, Snoopy, to be honest with you, when I did the draft process, I didn't love London as much as some people, but especially for the Jets, because this system, you really want good route runners that create separation. And London really doesn't do that. But in Atlanta, I thought he'd be a nice fit because you have bigger receivers. You have an offense that wants to stretch the field vertically. And look, they have a dynamic tight end that's going to draw a lot of the coverage. So you can have a receiver that you might not need a burner receiver with him. And with the Jets, I mean, I don't think Garrett Wilson's a burner like a Jameson Williams, but I just think like he fits that Jet system a lot better. But no, Pickens, I really thought Pickens was going to be a first round pick, to be honest with you. I really thought he was going to go to Green Bay. I really thought when we were getting to the end of the first round, I thought Green Bay could be in play for him. They went with Wyatt. I thought that Kansas City he could be a play for. They went with Karlaftis. I thought that when we got into the next round, Green Bay again, but they went with Christian Watson, who's another player I really liked. Houston, of course, they went with Mitchie. And look, that pick and what's happened with Mitchie is unbelievable and incredibly sad. So that pick you just almost have to automatically get past because no one expects that to happen. But I look like I know Baltimore got to steal David Ajobu with 45. But I wonder now if they're looking at the lack of playmakers they have. Chicago, I was shocked at 48. I really thought he was going to Chicago because they didn't have weapons. And I mean, even Philly felt like a place. Like I know they have a lot of receivers, but it just felt like a place that maybe they would take a shot. But look, everything happens for a reason. I still think Pickens is going to be a great receiver. Yeah, we're going to fight about the NFC. Like, I love how we went from the Jets to NFC playoff teams. I mean, that's always something. But again, guys, for those joining us, thank you so much. We will be recapping every single Jets game at the end of the season. And we'll be doing this after the next preseason. I mean, Will Parks, unbelievable tackle tonight. I think he looked really good. Jermaine Johnson really stood out to me tonight. I want to see him improve his power, but you can see he's got a good step off the edge. Now, I do think for Jet fans, I understand he's a bit older of a prospect, but I would temper the expectations. Like, I almost feel like they're going to use him as a situational role player, and next year they're going to ease him in as a full-time starter. But I do think you're going to see a really good defender. He's a good run defender. Like, I really liked his ability to get the quarterback. Like, that's the fun thing about this Jet front line is they can get after people. And I'm really curious to see how they're going to divide up this roster at the end of camp because there's a lot of pieces here. And you wonder how they're going to make everything move because I thought Anai had an unbelievable game tonight. But where does he fit? How many guys can they carry? And I do wonder, could the Jets get a couple draft picks back? Like, I'm thinking like a 6 or 7, but could Zuniga's had a good camp? Anai's had a good camp. Maybe what happens is, and we see this a lot around cutdown day, is certain teams love a player so much that they don't want to chance him getting to the waivers, and they'll trade basically compensation picks or 6th or 7th round picks for him. Maybe the Jets could swing and pick for one of them guys. Jonathan, I boycott Activision. Great name, by the way. I don't think Marshall's going anywhere because the thing with Marshall is he's a defensive tackle. Now, Clemons has kicked inside a lot to defensive tackle. Solomon Thomas seems like he's the starting defensive tackle. One of the curious cases I'm interested in is Sheldon Rankings, where, yeah, he was decent last year, but he does have a bit of a cap hit. Does it make sense for the Jets to cut him? And Jonathan Marshall, tonight especially, like, he was good against the run, and that's really what this Jet defensive tackles need. And Clemons looked good against the run. I just have a hard time seeing the Jets letting Jonathan Marshall go. Will Parks made a hit that makes huge noise with the Jets coaching staff. That hit, Nolan. Yeah, that was something, Nick. I really like Will. It is going to be fascinating to see how the Jets address the safety position because we know Whitehead starting. From all intents and purposes, it looks like Joyner will be the other starting safety. We know this team loves Jason Pink, even though they view him potentially as a full-time starter on the road. I think he's going to make this roster because he also offers the corner versatility. The big question becomes Elijah Riley, Will Parks, and Ashton Davis. And I think Riley's made some okay plays, but I think they're probably viewing him as a practice squad player. Parks looks really good to me. And this is the problem with Ashton Davis. Ashton Davis has not stood out to me. And that's a huge problem. Because I have been someone that's been defending Ashton Davis. And look, I know I get ripped for it from Jet fans all the time, and I'm about to see probably 20 comments about saying how bad Ashton Davis is, and I can completely understand it. But I said, look, this was going to be a critical camp for Davis because he was going to have a full offseason workout. He was going to have a full another offseason to learn the scheme, to adjust to the position, to basically learn this playbook and have an opportunity to thrive in this defense. I mean, Ashton Davis has the gifts to be a great safety in this league. But one of the things you've noticed about the Jets in their drafts and why I think they've worked really well the last 2 years is they have really focused on getting good football players. I know that sounds like a weird term, but what I mean is they're looking for football players that love the game of football and that are smart football players and can play the game. The first draft, Joe Douglas, and I always give him a bit of a break because he was drafting for Adam Gase, completely different system, coaching staff, basically had to get completely different groceries for a completely different cook. But Gase really, it looked like they were looking at high-end swings. Mekhi Becton, Denzel Mims, Ashton Davis. Guys, when you look at their physical gifts and talents, could be first-round players. But the questions were, could Mekhi stay healthy in his work ethic? Denzel Mims had a limited route tree at Baylor. Could he develop into a good route runner? And Ashton Davis is only playing football for 3 or 4 years. I mean, unbelievable athlete, but could he learn the position and make that transition? And I think what you've seen is why those players have struggled immensely is because the Jets were more focusing on the physical gifts than how good of how good of a football player they were on the field and how productive they were. I think they've gone for more productive players, and that's been really why they've done better the last 2 drafts. So I don't think Ashton Davis gets cut, but I just have a feeling that this coaching staff has moved off from him. And look, I know it's painful because the 2020 draft feels like a waste. And I get the frustration. I get Jets fans being pissed off. But the thing with that draft is we have to remember it was the COVID year. It was a weird year for drafting. You had Adam Gase. You had Joe Douglas doing his first draft. You basically had a coach that basically the entire fan base wanted out. It didn't feel like it was going to last long, and it didn't last long. It just feels like now they've gotten everything on the same timeline. They've gotten everything figured out. They have everyone working together. They have everyone on the same page as opposed to before. And look, when you change coaching staff, this is why it's so important to have the GM pick the coach, the GM work with the coach, because you need them to work together and fit the pieces correctly. Because the problem is when you brought in Robert Saleh and this coaching staff, the 2020 draft class was specifically designed for the Adam Gase system. And I always was wary because I didn't know if Becton had the footwork to fit to be basically an agile lineman in this West Coast system. I didn't know if Denzel Mims, who was a guy that in college relied on stretching the field and running go routes, could adjust to the intricacies of a route trees that this offense has. I didn't know how Ashton Davis, where this safety position has a lot of responsibilities in coverage, and especially taking deep down the field and asked to cover, a lot of ground, how he would fit. And it doesn't seem like they fit and like it's going to be passed. So I'm really curious to see what happens with Ashton Davis because, let's be honest, in one regard, he hasn't been bad on screen, but he also hasn't been noticeable on screen, which is almost just as bad, or some cases maybe even worse. What's your opinion on playing the hot hand after that? Look, Activision, even Sal said, look, when he's back, Zach's playing. He's already nipped that in the bud. And I think Joe Flacco may even mention it tonight. When Zach's healthy, he's starting. There's not going to be a quarterback controversy. Why the Jets have Zach in the booth? I believe he was either with LaFleur with the quarterback coach. And I think what they were doing tonight is, I know some people I did see on Twitter thought that was a little weird. They thought he could be on the sideline. But it also was a rare opportunity, I think, for Zach to get a bird's eye view live to see the field. And it is different seeing the game from that point. I mean, we saw the difference when LaFleur went to the booth and how he could see the field as opposed to what Zach Wilson can do. So I think that that's one of the reasons that they had him up there. So I think that's my best reasoning why he was in the booth tonight. I don't know the specific answer, but if I had to guess, That would probably be the reason why. But look, like you gotta give Jet fans credit for sticking through all that freaking rain tonight. It was a freaking downpour, and you gotta give them a lot of credit for sticking through that. But overall, I thought that it was a great game. You saw the defensive touchdown. I mean, it's going to be hard for the Jets, I think, to cut an eye, but they have so many players like on this team. Like, I don't know how they're going to fit everyone. Like, that's going to be the fascinating aspect of this. And guys, thank you so much for joining us. If you have any questions, Garrett Wilson hype on social media. Is it from I'm guessing it's from the catch, and also I know the big practice catch where he tiptoed along the sideline went really viral this week too. And look, Garrett Wilson, I also think, has a great advantage too because he's coming in with Elijah Moore. Elijah Moore, I don't think had this advantage last year where he had. I mean, the Jets have so many weapons now. They have a home run hitting running back in Bryce Hall. They have a second good running back in Michael Carr. And in the receiving core, you have Corey Davis, you have Braxton Berrios as emerged as a good slot receiver. You have Elijah Moore. And I think a lot of teams have seen the tape where if you don't give Moore the respect he deserves, he can beat you down the field. So, look, and there's a reason why Garrett Wilson was considered by many people to be the number one receiving prospect in an incredibly talented wide receiver draft. Like, if Garrett Wilson wasn't the number one receiving prospect, he was the number two on pretty much everyone's board. And the only player that stood out a little bit more was probably Jameson Williams just because of that speed. But you also wonder with the ACL, how long until he's back this year, the durability. And look, he had an unbelievable season, but it was one season. I mean, you look at Wilson, he's had an unbelievable career at Ohio State. He had to fight to get time away from Chris Olave, another talented receiver. I mean, look, Garrett Wilson's like one of those receivers. He might not be like an A+ at like a speed or anything, but he's an A or at the very worst a B+ in pretty much everything. So I think that is really exciting. And look, the Jets have playmakers. I mean, Denzel Mims might not even make this team right now because the Jets, I mean, they said too, like you look, these were guys that you were saying, look, like I really like the playability. And look, you look after tonight. I mean, thought Cager had a great game. Parks, Marshall, and Strevler. Clemons, I think, has really impressed me. And it's the versatility he brings. Like, I was hoping he could be a situational guy. I think he's going to have a big play on this roster. I mean, some guys that are a little up and down, Mims, Eboa, Pinnock, but Pinnock is also a bit of a, up and down player. I mean, but Westcote did not have a great game. Joyner did not have a good game. I didn't think Shepard had a good game. Bryce Hall did not have a great game. And also, you look Ashton Davis. To me, Ashton Davis did not stand out. And look, I think the Jets have solidified the safety position well with Whitehead. I think Whitehead's going to have a really good year. But I will say, I am a little concerned that the Jets, I don't love the other safety position. Like, for me, Joyner is a nice Band-Aid. I was really hoping this team in free agency could bring back Marcus May. I'm curious to see how now, the one good thing about the safety position is they've heavily upgraded the corner position. But will this be a situation by midseason as Will Parks or Jason Pinnock getting significant time over Joyner? And look, like you saw it tonight, Joyner had a bad blown coverage, and Orvalowski said, like, this is a 9-year veteran. If this was like a first or second year player, look, that's going to happen. But when you're that much of a veteran player and you're playing Marcus Mariota, like you're not playing Tom Brady, you're not playing Josh Allen, you're not playing one of the elite quarterbacks, and you're that badly out of position, it has to be concerning. So for me, I am a little bit concerned about the safety position. I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's going to be a detriment to this team. But if you had to ask me, like, I know everyone freaks out about the linebackers. Like, I think the linebackers have been good this camp. I think Alexander's looked good. I even think like Sherwood and had an impressive camp. Like, I don't think the linebackers are the problem. Like, to me, if you had to ask me, my biggest concern on this defense is even the defensive tackle position. I think they've found enough pieces, maybe not traditional defensive tackles, but I think Clemons has done a nice job there. I think Marshall's done a nice job in there. I'm more concerned. Like, look, I think Penix had a nice camp, will make this roster, but he feels like he's still a project. Could Will Parks be one of this team's starting safeties by the time we get to the regular season? And this is also a defense that sometimes likes to play with three safeties. So I'm really fascinated. And you feel kind of frustrated too, because you also were hoping, maybe this was me because I'm the eternal optimist, but you're kind of also hoping that maybe Ashton Davis would push one of those starting positions, that he would get to the point where we're saying, you know what, Ashton looks like he could start. He looks like he could be a starting player. And I mean, look, the big storylines tonight were, I think, Streveler. If you had to ask me who the third quarterback should be, I think it should be Streveler. Bryce Hall struggling mightily. And I think it's clear why this team felt they had to go and address this corner position for agency, although I still think he is a good high-end backup. But there's going to be some tough choices. I think Bradley and I had an unbelievable game today. It's going to be very difficult to cut, but then they also have Jacob Martin, Bryce Huff. Now, Huff's a bit banged up, but it doesn't sound like a long injury. In some ways, the Jets might be better off if they could put someone on that short-term 4-week IR to start the season, but I don't think they're going to have anyone eligible for that. And the other big thing Sal said, too, is the Jets-Giants game will be the dress rehearsal. Saying he's planning on playing the starters a large chunk of the game now. The most I could see them playing the starters is the half. And I think a lot of it is the Jets also really haven't played a lot of the starters. I mean, we've seen them get certain starters in there, but I think the biggest thing is they want to get at least a series or two at the offensive line of there. Hopefully Dwayne Brown getting some reps. Hopefully Fant getting a couple of reps at right tackle. Basically getting the starting unit out there and some of the stars on the defensive line just to get them out there. Maria is a Streveler over White fan I see in the chats. So, but those are really the big storylines for me right now. Do you guys have any questions? Would love your observations from tonight. What you thought about the game, who stood out, who struggled. Would love to hear from you guys today. I mean, look, I think Parks is over. Look at the state. I think Parks has climbed over Ashton Davis. Look, I think Marshall now leads the defensive tackle over Shepard and Smart. And really for that fourth tight end, sixth receiver, I think Cager has put himself in that conversation because we also have to remember when we're talking about filling out a roster, what do you look for at the back end of a roster? You want guys that are versatile. And now all of a sudden, you've seen Cager really adapt to this tight end role well. But don't forget, he used to be a receiver, and he still can line up as a receiver. So let me ask you this at this point. If it comes down to Denzel Mims or Cager, and you know Cager plays special teams, we've seen Mims on special teams, but what brings more valuable to the Jets if they can trade Mims and get even like a 6th-round draft pick? Bringing in a guy like Cager who can play tight end and can play a receiver and can play special teams. So if he's on your roster and the Jets lose, like let's say Braxton Berrios goes down during the game, they can bring in Cager. If, one of the tight ends has to limp off for a half, you then have him as the third tight end. I do think that allows you to have that versatility. Cager over Boa, Irwin J. Charles over Mims. Streveler's the talented team, but look, Streveler's a unique athlete. I think he's we'll probably cut guys and sign him to the practice squad. I'm interested to see too, because some of these guys, like this is the other thing about the Jets this year, is they have guys on that when they cut will actually get picked up by other teams. So that's also something that you never really see with the Jets, but I think it's a good thing. I mean, look, I'm really curious to see how this team is constructed at the camp. There's a lot of questions, but they do, I think, have a lot of versatility. And look, I think, like I said, guys like Panic and Cage, I really think have made a strong case to make this roster, not because they're playing the preseason, which has been very good, but the versatility that they add. I think guys like that, because you look at Clemons, you look at Solomon Thomas, they're guys that can play outside of the defensive end, inside of the defensive tackle. I mean, Pinnock offers you the option to play corner or safety. Like those, like when we're talking about like the 44th to the 53rd player on the roster, you're trying to be creative and think, okay, are there guys we can kill two birds with one stone? Like, is there a tight end that can also function as a fullback so we don't have to carry two? Is there a tackle or an offensive lineman that can play four positions as opposed to one? Is there a linebacker that has the speed to play safety or vice versa? If we need to drop a safety into a linebacker position, even for like 10 snaps, we won't get hurt with. I don't want to see Jeff Smith on the roster. Please cut him. Unfortunately, I think from all accounts, Jeff Smith's had a better camp than Mims. They love Jeff Smith on special teams. And look, Jeff Smith tonight, I did think created some separation. It's just Mike White couldn't get him the football. Is Jacob Martin on the bubble? Look, I don't think Martin is. I really don't. I mean, Martin had a really good first game. They didn't really play him a lot tonight. And don't forget, you have to look at where guys came from and how they were acquired. Jacob Martin came over in a $15 million 3-year deal. And I'm just looking up the contract. I'm seeing the guarantees on it. So he basically has a $1.3 million signing bonus. So the Jets basically are locked into him for 2 years. They have an out and after 2 seasons where they can save money, and that's only like a certain cap hit. But you look right now, he's a dead $6 million cap hit if they come this year. Like, he's not going anywhere. Like, they invested heavily in the free agency period. The one that could be intriguing, and I doubt they would do this because the coaching staff loves this player. Joe Douglas personally brought him in, is Bryce Huff. But the question becomes, if a team gives you a really high draft pick for him, like a third or fourth round pick for Huff, or if they could offer you, like, let's say the Jets don't love their second safety, but a team is willing to give you a young safety for Bryce Huff or something, that could be a possibility too. Like, you look like at the he's not going anywhere because he signed as a free agent and they paid him pretty extensively. And when he's been on the field, he's been really good. I mean, like, let's look at it. We know there's going to be a heavy rotation, but your ends right now are Lawson and your ends are John Franklin Myers. But even that's loose because he plays all over the place. So then what do you have? You have Jermaine Johnson, you have Huff, and you have Martin. It's kind of like, who's the next guy after that? Anai, I think, has put himself where it's going to be hard to get rid of him. But then it comes down to, like, I don't think Vinny Curry's going to make this team. Like, do the Jets want to carry 6 DNs? But the other thing, too, is you also have Michael Clemons, who's technically DN, but they play him at D tackle. They draft him. You know he's not getting cut. And you look like Martin, Jermaine Johnson can play a little bit all over the place, too. So they're going to carry a lot of defensive linemen. So Martin seems a bit undersized to me. Yeah, Martin... Don't forget, Martin, they've moved him around a bit. Like, he played a bit. The Texans moved to the 3-4. They moved him at the outside linebacker, but he does seem better despite his undersize to play better as a 4-3 end. And look, he's not an every down defensive end. He's a hybrid pass rusher that you bring in pass rushing situations. And he's 6'2", 242. He's not going to be your typical starting defensive end. He's not going to be there on rundowns. Like, you're probably going to have your Jermaine Johnsons in there on rundowns. You're going to have your Michael Clemonses in on rundowns. But if it's like a 3rd and 8, a 3rd and 9, you want to get a little bit more speed. You want to get a guy a break. I mean, this is someone that has a great pass rush win rate. I mean, last year playing defensive end in Houston with 4 sacks. I mean, this is someone that, look, he's not going to be a guy that's going to get you 8 or 9 sacks, but he could give you a lot of pressures and 5 to 6 sacks as a rotational guy. So I understand that some people are concerned about his size, but his role isn't to be an every down defensive end. It's basically to be that hybrid um, rusher. Robert's out indicated Jets might make a firm decision on who's starting at corner, Sauce or Bryce. Like, it's gonna be Sauce. Let's be honest. It's Sauce. So, but no, I get the concern. But look, I mean, even Bryce Huff is a little bit undersized. Him and Martin are very similar. That's one of the reasons I was a little surprised they brought in Martin, but they really liked him from the Texans. He brings a rotational back, and look, like, let's be honest, I don't think this team, they got great value in Jermaine Johnson and Clemons. I don't think that they were necessarily looking at defensive linemen in those positions, but they added those and they got Bradley and I'm curious to see too, like, could the Jets swing a trade, like either to get a draft pick or to utilize this to get like another safety or another position. But again, guys, just before we head out, just want to check to see if you had any more final questions before we head out. I'll give you the chance to answer them. But if you're joining us after this, make sure to comment below and I will make sure to get to them in the next video. Make sure you leave your name, what you would like to talk about, your questions. And of course, if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of our Jets content throughout the season with breaking news and, of course, reactions and recap after every single Jets game. Of course, we're doing this in the early hours on the live stream, and also we will be having lots of guests. Like you saw last week, I did guests with some Giants fans. We're going to get more guests on the show. We're going to expand. We're going to try bringing some other people too. But let's answer the final question before we head out tonight. But again, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. And if you know any Jets fans that are looking to join a community, please let them know about us. Maria, Bryce Huff is the coach's favorite. It's going to be hard calling a lot of D linemen. Yes, a trade somewhere would be good. But here's the other thing, Maria. It's a good thing. I mean, when have you ever said this about Jets defensive line and pass rush? I mean, we've been begging for pass rush for 15 years, 20 years. And now you have a defensive line that's so loaded that you're afraid you might lose a piece or two. So I could see them looking at a trade. Anai is a weird one because he had the great game tonight. And it's tough because he has the great game, but then you look at it too, and it's like, okay, well, it's against the backups for the Falcons. I mean, they're not that great, but he is a favorite. It'll be curious to see also too, is there guys that they can stash on the practice squad, or there's the guys that can stash on the short-term injury list for the first 4 weeks. Huff obviously was a bit banged up. I don't think he's going on that, but that, again, like, let's say if a guy's going to be out 2 weeks, maybe the team says, well, if we put him on the 4-week one, then at least we open up a roster spot for 4 weeks. So there's a lot of gymnastics with this roster, and we'll have to see how they do it. But again, guys, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Love you all. You guys brought some great questions, great analysis. Love your questions. As always, you guys are amazing. Can't wait to have you here for the next live stream after the next game. Thank you guys so much for joining us. The Jets, 24-16 preseason win. A lot of good, some concerns, obviously. But overall, I think you got a good picture. You feel like this team has some depth, and you feel like this team has some playmakers at key positions, which is something that we as a fan base have desperately been starved of for a long time. But thank you so much for joining us here on Rich Sports Talk. We'll see you next time.